So I was hanging out with some friends in private battle in recon mode, and we played a mini game to where someone built up Kraken and chased other people while it was active. When we switched to a different map, I had realized something.
I heard you!
You can hear other players in their own ink. Cut to another private battle, and I was showing another friend that this was a thing. Hung out a little more afterwards, and then a thought hit me like a speeding bullet train. I can make a FNAF minigame out of this. Okay, I feel a looming doom radiating from my DMs from the future, so we can make a FNAF minigame out of this. I had immediately started typing out a basic rule set with some other things that we'll cover later, with the additional input of friends to make this idea work. I'll try to make this as clear as I can, since a minigame the likes of this is complicated but fun in its own way. Since there's honestly more to this than I thought, I'll be labeling sections of the video just so you can easily keep track on any of the subjects. With all that being said, let's get started. The rules are as follows. Animatronics, or attackers, are alpha. The night guards, or defenders, are bravo. The minigame takes place in recon mode, since it has no music to aid with hearing and extra time for longer nights. The defender plays vanilla Tenebrella, and attackers play either an Elko weapon, one with a fast kill time, or specified weapons. This will come into detail later, so bear with me. The defender sets up cameras via beacons throughout the map and claim a spot to be their office before attackers paint the vast majority of that area. A beacon cannot be placed directly next to the office. The defender must also either touch the tower temporarily, carry the Rainmaker to a checkpoint, or ink the zones on the map. This is for passive special buildup for attackers, more on that later. The Night Guard cannot squid form when listening out for attackers, and must squid form to use the map. The attackers, when out, must shark slowly towards the defender, stopping at imaginary checkpoints along the way. In order to ward the attackers off, the defender must shoot the ground of whichever side an attacker approaches from. If done so, attackers must retreat a moderate amount from the office space and plan for their next approach. If attackers are right next to the office and the defender decides to check cameras, they are presented with an immediate opportunity to kill. Attackers can rush the office when they're a considerable distance away from it. If the office is reached, the defender has 1 second to repel the rushing attacker from killing them. Attackers cannot rush at the same time, and co-workers can be killed to temporarily stop them from what they're supposed to do. And that's pretty much it when it comes to the basic idea of how the game operates. Now, funnily enough, for a minigame idea such as this, there's a lot of map mode combinations that actually work with this game in mind, with only a couple of maps being plausible choices. There aren't any established office locations, but here's a basic idea on what to do and where to set up. The best setup spot is usually around or at mid, since it allows the defender to be approached from a multitude of angles and sides, rather than exclusively left or right. Choosing a spot at spawn or at an off angle can also lead to some antics, despite being defending favorite and limiting what attackers can do from behind. Think of it like a difficulty select, choosing where do you want your office to be and how do you like to be approached and challenged. If you ever played FNAF, you know that the gameplay is that of a modern day summer, sitting in one spot and doing jack shit all day. However, I will say that since this minigame is primarily audio based, you'll have a better time with headphones if you own a pair. While cameras may seem insignificant in the grand scheme, they're still nice to have, giving you any piece of information as to where your big giant robots are. Oh, and here's a niche thing. If you play with vibrations on, you can actually feel the presence of other players when they're attached to a wall. So if you suffer from some form of hearing issue, you could always switch to a map like Mako or Flounder and set up an office on a higher up area. For attackers, a general idea on how to act like a corpse piloting a kid's entertainment mecha is to be as slow and cryptic about your movement as possible. Try to scout potential points of interest on the map or in front of you, like a barricade or call-out location, and relax a little bit before slowly inching your way towards the defender. Once you're at the office, imagine an 8-second timer before blasting or slicing the minimum wage worker in half. If they decide to check cams while you're next to the office, similar to the one rule that was stated, you can double the speed of said timer or send them to an early grave. Now, what's anything FNAF without incorporating some form of gimmick within the mix? Upon brainstorming ideas on how the game would operate, of course one of the first suggestions was, what's some special roles that we can make? Well, thanks to the power of neurodivergent thinking, we came up with some roles for attackers that allow for different experiences and more hectic games, in a minigame that's truthfully boring. Main stage attackers approach from an off angle. Once at the office, they stand directly behind the defender and stay there throughout the entirety of the game. If the defender doesn't give you any attention via a shot at the floor facing your direction, then you can put them out of their misery. Wizards play a reef slider weapon and approach like normal until they're a fair distance away from the office. Once there, stand in a position. If the defender doesn't notice you and shoot 3 times in your direction, run them over with the blahage. Phantoms are a non-lethal third party, trying their best to gain the attention of the Night Guard without killing them directly. If the Night Guard falls from one of your illusions, try throwing a squid party or slow charging a booyah bomb so they can have a tougher time hearing out for the real threats. You could also throw in playing a Toxic Mist or Ink Mine weapon just for the extra salt. With a not so subtle name, FREDDY'S is an attacker that plays a beacon weapon. They stand behind or at their own location a fair bit away from the office. Once 3 beacons are placed, the attacker makes noises to signal danger, and when enough time passes, they have the opportunity to chase and kill. The best weapon for this role is Wiper Deco, since once you place your 3 beacons down, you can simply hold your charge to make a whirring sound. Circus freaks play regularly while occasionally throwing a torpedo or autobomb at or next to the defender. I suggest running sub power up just for the extra throw distance if you get repelled at the door, or if you'd like to give the defender an early surprise. I'd say that having 2 gimmick role attackers is the ideal setup, but if you truthfully wanted to, you could have 3 or a complete game full of gimmick roles if everyone's in agreement. There's not that many gimmicks to pick and choose from, but this keeps the minigame itself fun and engaging while also not being more overwhelming than it already is. Now you may think that with the already powerful arsenal that attackers have with the amount of actions that they can do, all while the game focusing on the minimum wage lackey that is defending, that there wouldn't be no help in this situation, right? Well, unlike the actual Freddy Fazbear establishment, we're actually going to give the Night Guard companions to aid them in survival. This idea is essentially interactive spectating, but that could always change depending on your preferences. Here's some basic ideas of what others can do to aid the primary defender. Technicians play a beacon weapon and lay 1 extra beacon down on the spot of their choosing. They can also replace any beacons that may be broken. Audio lures play a weapon that has sprinkler. Your job is to simply stand in a spot of your choosing and throw the sub. If an attacker hears or is next to it, they must destroy it. Sensors are players that work as an additional camera. If they hear an attacker shark or rushing, they can call out their location using it this way. Spotlights are essentially early door checkers, chucking torpedoes in moderation at a side to make attackers preemptively flee.
Hello?
This is primarily a joke thing that someone at Spectate could do, so truthfully no one has to do it. However, if you feel like griefing the Night Guard, you could always spark up a conversation to see how they are. If this is ever played via non-voice chatters, you can always just lend some booyahs for moral support. We're reaching the end of the video, but before I clock out, I'd like to state that there's no real definitive way of playing this minigame. It could be played on all these maps in these areas and many more that I haven't thought of. Aside from having at least 1 defender and 2 animatronics, there's no real player limit. And if you all have any ideas on what could be added or changed, then feel free to. Think of everything that I've said as a sort of blueprint for a more traditional FNAF mode. You can always add a spin to it, like a security breach mode where you go to multiple offices and stay there for a certain time while being chased when you're not at one, or a nightmare mode where you relentlessly get pelted with all the gimmick rolls at once from 1 or 2 attackers. Now, I don't know if I wasted my time with making up a needlessly complicated minigame for Splatoon, but I had a lot of fun brainstorming and reviewing some concepts with my friends, and I'm glad I was able to share them. I'll have a link to the script of this video in the description since I've unintentionally formulated it like a guide. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below, and I'll be sure to check them out. Thanks for listening, have a damn good one, and I'll see you later.